All right, Don, we'll get to the complexities of franchisee, franchisor as we work through this. But I'd like to start with your accidental franchise story. How did you accidentally fall into franchising?
Yeah, so it's actually sort of interesting. My wife got a pretty large promotion about 4 years ago. I'm a West Coast guy through and through, and we're recent transplants to the Northeast. My wife gets a pretty big promotion. I follow her back east. At the time, I'm serving as a chief revenue officer, head of growth for early stage technology companies out of Silicon Valley, right? Born and raised in San Francisco, spent my entire career in the Bay Area, and got to this place where I seemed to be getting maybe a little bit older and more grumpy. And the co-founders of these early stage technology companies were getting younger with more hubris, I like to say. Mm-hmm. And I was starting to, maybe I should do something on my own. And I actually have a very dear friend who also is part of Hammer and Nails, was talking to me about it at the time. And at the time when we moved back to the Northeast, I was thinking, oh, franchising, that's not for me. I'm a tech guy. I'd rather be a tech guy through and through. And as I started to dig into Hammer and Nails and franchising in itself, I thought, man, there's a lot of opportunity here, especially if you can, you're coming out of corporate America where maybe you've had a 15 to 20-year career. You have some very hard skills that you can bring to the table, depending on the franchise concept, specifically with Hammer and Nails. And I just started to look at it very closely and think, you know what, there's a lot of opportunity with this brand, right? I mean, we're monetizing a routine habit that most guys have. Most guys, not every guy. Most guys, right? I'm a bald guy trying to sell a barbershop. That's great. It's irony. But most guys have this routine habit from the age of like 4 years old, call it. They learn from their dad or someone in their family that, hey, there's a social contract. You have to be well groomed when you go out into society, into work. You have to look good. And then they keep this habit, this routine habit, through, retirement. And so as I started to look at Hammer and Nails and think, wow, so we're basically monetizing with a membership model, recurring revenue model, a routine habit that most guys have for most of their lives. And when you look at our shops, you'll actually see a wide breadth of customers, anywhere from 4 and 5 year olds all the way up to guys in their 60s and 70s, still getting straight razor shaves. I like that it was a subscription model. So coming out of early stage technology companies, I love subscription models, membership models. We're selling a disposable product, right? Your hair and nails grow back, and it's luxury pricing. So the margins for our pricing models are a bit higher, actually say much higher than some of our competitors, more of those sort of budget types of haircutting franchises.
Love that backdrop. A few follow-ups. One, you ended up buying a master franchisee agreement, right?
Yeah, that's right.
So that in the vast majority of franchises that doesn't exist anymore. So that's a rare opportunity. Did you, when you're going through this, obviously a smart guy, did you understand that as an opportunity right away?
Not initially. No, not initially. I, even to this day, being almost 4 years in it now, I don't consider myself to be a franchise guy quite yet. There's a lot that I'm learning from a lot of really smart people every day. And so I didn't initially understand it, but then when I started to see the economics of the sort of, if you will, the head of franchising or the master franchise for New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, and Rhode Island, and I understood how that all worked, then I very quickly understood, wait, there's a big opportunity here.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm trying to simplify the master model, and probably where it has failed with other brands is because it wasn't simplified this way. It's almost like two franchise opportunities. One opportunity is support and structure of a business, almost like franchising an operational center. And the other is franchising a haircut business. And so almost like you're a multi-brand franchisee, because you have two objectives. On this side, you're trying to get more customers to sign up for memberships.
Yep.
On this side, you're like, hey, the benefit of being under my systems is you're going to get support directly from me. You've basically bought the franchise rights to now operationalize the business locally.
Correct. And the unique thing about I think hammer and nails, and again, I'm going to be very clear. This is one of knowledge at this point. I've never worked in any other franchising system before. Is that with hammer and nails, you get actually dual support. You have this great team at the home office, supply chain people. You have a dedicated account manager. You have marketing folks. They're all ready to jump in and help the franchisee. And then you have a team. My particular team is 4 people here now in the Northeast. That you have this supplement, sort of boots on the ground, to say, okay, great, thank you, home office. We love all the support, and they give a ton of great support. And there are times where you need to have sort of regional knowledge of what's going on, because the home office being in California, and what works in California doesn't work here in the Northeast. And so having those, subject matter experts actually in the field, boots on the ground in Connecticut, in New York, and in New Jersey, they understand the market better, can actually apply, I think, context-specific solutions for franchisees that are, that are specific to the Northeast.
Well, if you look at probably the most complained about item of buying a franchise, it ends up being support. And so at the very minimum, you have 4 people there that are lending support to those that fit into your system. How many franchise owners do you have under your roof now?
Right now, so we just opened 3 new shops last year. So that's 3 different franchisees. I have about 7. I'm in the process of closing a multi-unit deal here in Long Island. Actually, is going to sign by next week. And then I have another multi-unit deal in New Jersey that I'm working on. So probably by the end of the year, we'll probably have close to 10 different franchise partners just in the Northeast.
Because of managing the 2 types of business, awarding franchises and obviously operating your own, did you understand how difficult it was to actually sell franchises?
No, not at all. Sorry about that. My dogs are here barking, so I apologize about that.
Works. Yeah.
Hold on one second. So yes, it did not know how hard it would be. I think the hardest part is just identifying the right people that you want to get on board. We spend an inordinate amount of time. I've actually, in fact, for the Northeast, we've turned away more people than we've accepted, only because the way that I tend to look at this is that if we're going to do this, we're going to do this potentially up to 20 years together, a 10-year plus 10-year renewal. And so we want to make sure that we have the right people on board. And so we spend a lot of time just interviewing and talking and meeting with, and making sure that the character is there, that the philosophy around how you do business, making sure that you treat your employees well, just a host of different things, from a core value perspective that we really dig in on the early days before we really get too deep, too fast with any one particular candidate. So to answer your question, it's I did not realize how difficult it could be. I think that sort of level of difficultness is a couple of things, and really primarily one thing is just a lack of experience on my part. Call it, 3 or 4 years ago, I was still learning so much and I didn't understand how the industry worked. Fast forward now, we opened 5 shops in about a 2-year period of time. We're going to open 5 shops in just 1 year. So we're going to effectively double from last year's opening in 1 year. And that's sort of been my goal, is to double every year from last year moving forward. But back to more specific to your question, I think that the challenging thing is just understanding how that works and making sure that how you can attract top franchisee candidates is really the key to your success here.
You're operating a unit on your own too?
Correct, in Westport, Connecticut.
Yeah, I mean, I think a few comments in franchising as a whole, and I've seen it a million times. If I have a CEO, they go, "Where are my leads?" I was like, "Well, we're not really looking at leads. We're looking at deals. So maybe we should focus in on what matters." But then I say, "Well, tell me what's winning." They're like, "We're going to sell 50 of these this year." I go, "Well, where did you come up with that number?" And they look up in the sky and they see this magical number 50. It's like, no, if the brands that grow the right way and responsibly, which is what you just said, like if we continue to protect our culture, then we're going to continue to want to work with the people that are our franchisees. If we want to continue to work with our franchisees, then we're going to continue to help them drive profitability. And so it like the industry ends up being backwards because it's not about selling franchises, it's about developing franchisees. Because if you do it the right way, you're going to make more off royalty anyway by getting the right person into the system. And so that's what surprised me. Most brands put a target out there and they sell franchises. The ones that end up being the 1% are the ones that develop franchise owners.
Yeah, that's right. So one of the things I almost never focused on the revenue piece of it. I'm all about character, personality, and believe it or not, like even now to the point where last year I was blessed to bring on this wonderful family out of New Jersey. They bought 2 units with a ROFR for a 4th, and he's a construction executive. And I'm starting to bring on these different sort of domain experts on the team that all have the same character, all operate the same way, but have different experience in digital marketing. So now the team, what I've done is we have the team that can reach out to any one of their franchising sort of colleagues and say, hey, I'm struggling with digital marketing, or I have a question about how long should this build out take? Well, we have those domain experts on the team now. And that's actually getting really exciting because now we're getting to a place now where we have a lot of really good information and data as we bring on new franchisee partners. They have access to this, to these other folks.
A smart or sophisticated investor says, okay, here's how much I'm going to put out to obviously own my master agreement, get my first unit go, build infrastructure to support my franchisees for a long-term play of eventually I can sell off my portfolio, either back to private equity that buys the whole system or a family office that wants to buy your local model. Did you go into this with the long-term mentality because of your backdrop in all these tech investments? And how have you protected that and eliminated some of the stress that could come? Like, am I growing fast enough? Am I making the money that I want to make?
Yeah, so a couple of things. So yes, I did come into it, spending a lot of time in Silicon Valley. I was very lucky to participate in multiple different institutional rounds of funding with early stage companies. And so I got to have a good sort of, I would say homework or experience there. And I'm, bringing that forward now. One of the things that we're not sacrificing on, again, and I'm going to probably say this 100 times on this call, so I apologize, is that we really spend a lot of time looking for the right candidates. Because if we do that well, we know that the rest will take care of itself, because actually the model is so well developed. And I don't know how familiar you are with our leadership team. Aaron Myers, our CEO, is he's a operations executive from Massage Envy, was part of the team that helped scale them from, X number of units up to 1,200 units. So we have that been there, done that kind of experience, which was a big selling point for me to buy into the brand. And so when I look at sort of what my long-term goal is to just get the right people on. We sell multi-units. I generally don't sell one. I will sell one here and there. I look for more of like families that want to come in and buy 2 or 3. Again, one is not off the table, but come in and buy 2 or 3 and then have sort of they also can demonstrate that they have a very clear pathway for growing their wealth. And if we are aligned on that and we have the right structure in place to support them, then the rest will take care of itself. And going back to your question about the goals, this year, my goal is to sell 12 to 14 new franchise licenses, but I want to do that over, call it 3 or 4 different franchisee partners. And when you look at it that way, it really does not, you don't really need to see 100 different people in that situation, right? You need to see, or maybe you need to see 100, but you don't need to see 500 different people in order to close those, 3 or 4 different partners.
Well, look, the mentality that you're going after in the multi-unit franchise buyer is someone that's going to latch on to your same mentality. Typically, when I'm advising a franchisee, I say make sure you have enough capital to at least have 3 open, but you sign up for 1, get that successful, get 2 going, have enough for a rainy day, and you continue to leverage your lending ability to carry it over into other units. But that's a different mentality than what you're looking for. You're like, hey, I'm looking for long-term matches. So when we're selling you multiple territory, we're saying like you're in this, and there could be some bumps and bruises. Every business has it, but you're so focused on getting that next unit open, and almost like in the down payment from a franchise fee standpoint, you have tied up a little bit of capital into holding onto that space too. So totally understand the objective.
Yeah, it depends. I mean, there are folks that we have sold one unit to, and they started to do well, one in particular, and now he's come back and said, I want to buy, and he's literally surrounded by other franchisees now. And so that's the risk that you run. Yeah. And so I have a conversation up front. I say to people, look, you can buy one. I want you to do what makes most comfortable. However, there's a strong possibility, given how successful the brand has been over the last 12 months and continues to, I mean, the expansion is crazy. If you would have talked to me 2 years ago, it was a lot of tears in my coffee. Like, no one's calling me. Where are all my candidates? But now it's a much different story. And so what I try to advise them to is, like, what is your overall goal? We spend a lot of time just talking about what is their 5 and 10 year goal. I want to understand that to see if it fits in with our overall sort of philosophy here in the Northeast.
The number is, it's like 87% of startup franchisors, which again, like in a master model, you are a startup franchisor in your marketplace. 87% don't sell a deal in their first 2 years. But then the magic of having a buyer in is franchisees sell franchises. And so it's not like you don't need the magic of marketing a business opportunity, the magic of marketing franchisees that have said, I'm buying in, because that creates, okay, if that person can do it, I can do it. And once the fear of missing out starts triggering, which there you have franchisee who bought one unit, got it going, is like, all right, this aligned with my expectations. You're like, well, if you want to go and you're going to have to go farther out, it just changes the construct of who's coming in. What's your dream for the future now?
Sorry, ask that question again.
What's your dream for the future?
I'm sorry, my dogs are barking again. Say that again.
What is the dream for the future? Where do you go from here?
So I think hold on one second. I apologize. I think for the future, what we're really trying to focus on now is trying to get a lot of success around bringing in, I think, more. We're starting to see, just like anything, an adoption curve, right? You have your innovators who are less risk adverse and are willing to jump into the brand early, right? And so we've sort of seen those folks come in. Now, sort of this next evolution, again, I'm learning this all by myself now. What I'm seeing for the first time in my career as a franchise person, as a franchise professional, is we're starting to see folks that have exited from Massage Envy and who've exited from Orange Theory Fitness, and they've sold 5, 6, 7, 10 units and have a bunch of cash, and they're like, wait a second, this hammer and nails thing is a thing, and pretty much every guy I know in my life gets haircuts and grooming experiences, and why wouldn't I want to open? So now we're starting to see sort of now moving past that sort of the innovators. Now we're moving into the early adopters, right? And those early adopters are, I think, the ones that have franchise experience, are familiar with a brick and mortar membership-based model, and are now saying, okay, wait, Hammer Nails is nearing, we'll probably be around 70 to 80 total units open this year, which, as you know, as a franchise professional, as you get close to that 100, that's sort of that magic sort of tipping point. And I think you're starting to see a lot of people get really, those early adopters get really excited about our brand. And I think that's where we're focusing on. In fact, as a brand, we're doing quite a bit of digital marketing and marketing in general. As a master franchise team, we've decided to go all in this year on really doing a lot of marketing towards generating new leads. And those leads are proving to be folks that have prior experience.
Well, that's going to be the magic pathway. I mean, any brand that we've worked with, once we have the avatar, an example of a franchisee that came from another franchise, it's all that fear of missing out, especially with the limited brands that have scaling franchisees. There are plenty of one unit franchisees that buy into businesses. You look at a Massage Envy, it scaled fast because at some point the business investor understood how much it cost to open, and it was pretty consistent on how much they can make. And so now it's just a matter of getting these things open and knowing how much is kicking off to the bottom line and how long it takes to pay off your initial investment. And so now that you're getting in people who have been there, done that, other people are like, and that's culture. That's exactly why you protect the culture. That's why they're buying in. And then down the line, what you're developing, what you're actually developing is also for a future franchisor to say, let's get one Hammer and Nails franchisee in, and then we'll just get the rest of them to invest their money over with us too.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. And I think as you look at it, definitely I'm starting to see like a maturation of even going, and again, I spent over 10 years in early stage technology companies. So I never worked in a technology company that was later stage than a Series C investment, right? I don't like politics. I don't like working in businesses with a lot of politics. I sort of like to be early stage. My wife's like, how do you do this? There's like almost no rules. And I'm like, exactly. But you really get to make it your own and sort of prove to everyone that, hey, look, this model that I'm building is attractive, not only to me, but it's also showing success. Our Westport shop has been open 26 months now. And I mean, it's killing it. We're almost 1,000 members. I mean, 1,000 members for a barbershop business, right? I mean, 35% of the services we deliver on a monthly and annual basis are hand and foot. So guys saying, oh, I don't like manicures and pedicures, 35% nationwide of hand and foot services across, call it 50 stores now, is not insignificant, which is sort of the moat that we build around our business, right? Because we compete with all of the other bars up into the point where you get into that hand and foot room and the additional services we offer. And so as I think about the business, it's exciting because we're actually seeing it start to mature. The type of folks that are starting to invest, again, we're going back to those folks that have been there and done that. They've sold out of another brand. They're now wanting to buy into Hammer and Nails, and it's pretty exciting.
Not that you're going to tell me the truthful answer, but here's my final question. You're a tech guy. You've watched these innovative businesses be created and go get investment. You now are getting a taste of franchising. Have you thought about becoming a franchisor? And is your brain working over here to say, this is what I'm going to eventually be the true franchisor of?
Yeah. I mean, I've gotten approached by a couple of folks already to like, hey, Don, we want you to buy in. I'm like, time out. There's a lot I still have to learn here.
Yeah, I love it. Well, Don, I love the story. Again, like I think the master model, it's rare that they have worked in franchising because, and I think it really comes down to your first statement. If there's a mismatch on the culture of who you're bringing in to have access to this entire territory, then that's probably what caused the Subways of the world looked great, and then it didn't. There's very rare scenarios like the Massage Envies that actually worked out, or the Sport Clips, which is a lower end haircut brand that great clips, that those have worked out okay. Then you have the Fantastic Sams that did not work out okay because of the amount of lawsuits that got created. And so for Hammer and Nails to say, let's focus on building up a culture of sophisticated business operators at the top, that seems to be what's now parlaying into what the success is. And the last thing I'll say is, you bet on the jockey, not on the horse. And clearly they got a good jockey up in the Northeast.
Yeah.
And
I use that analogy. In fact, I wrote an article on LinkedIn probably 4 or 5 years ago, horse track jockey, right? And you're trying to see someone's success. Is it the product? Is it the market? Or is it actually the jockey?
Yeah, that's right.
Right. And so, there has to be some level of quality control, right, on the people you're bringing in. And unless you have that quality control, I think it becomes a slippery slope, right? I host a monthly all franchisee call with all of my franchisee partners once a month, and they'll get on, and there's just this tremendous amount of sharing that goes on. But you can start seeing there's just like-mindedness, and I know that I've done my job where I actually can just go on mute and I fade into the background, and I now have these like seasoned operators that are helping the newbies come on and say, hey, actually you want to do this? And yes, maybe once in a while I'll chime in, but I shouldn't be the guy with the loudest voice. Like, we should have picked the right people early on that are now collaborating together, and makes my job very easy, because now we actually have a real team. We have a team that's working together.
Yeah,
it's actually cool to see. It's cool to see.
Yeah. Love it. Well, Don, thanks for sharing your story. I appreciate it. I look forward to hearing how it continues. I'm sure there's more to this story, so thanks for doing this.
You bet. And I apologize for my dogs are here today. Normally they're out on a walk, and sorry for all the barking.
You're apologizing, but all you're doing is you're showing, like, when you're with Hammer Nails, you can actually live your life and be in business. It's all done on purpose.
Well, I wish I was smart enough to think that through. I can tell you that, one last thing I will say is, if you're able to be a good operator around a unit or multi-units, I spend no more than 3 hours a week working on my shop. I actually haven't stepped foot in my shop since the week before Thanksgiving in 2024. I've not been there since. But yeah, God willing, it continues that way.
I love it. Well, for Don, I'm Nick. This was another episode of Meet the Z with an asterisk of Meet the Zor. Thanks for doing this. That's great. Thanks for doing